if you could just take a moment to introduce yourself, tell us where you went to school, what you studied, and then we'll pick up from there.
Yeah, great. So my name is Sarah Turner, and I got my undergraduate degree from Smith College in sociology and philosophy. And then I got a certificate in metalsmithing, jewelry, and furniture making from the Oregon College of Art and Craft in Portland, Oregon. And then I got a master's degree in metalsmithing at the Cranbrook Academy of Art in Michigan.
Wow. So how did you transition into the metal smithing and craft work?
It really was just instinct. And I feel like I just didn't trust that instinct when I was an undergrad at Smith and I studied other things. And then I just had an instinct that I wanted to work with my hands and I wanted to find a way to combine ideas with practical skills. And so contemporary craft kind of sits partway between art and design and skill building. And so it was the right spot for me.
So how was that transition post-grad going into like your industry?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I left college, I didn't really know what my industry was, frankly. I had a sociology degree that could go in a lot of directions.
Mm-hmm.
I moved out to the West Coast. I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I just needed to get a job. Like it didn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily relate to my career or my industry. So in some ways, I feel like I struggled with going backwards. I went and I worked as a lifeguard. I'd always done that in college, and I was managing an aquatics program at the Y. I worked in childcare because that was a job I could get. And so it took me a while to kind of reset my path. Like first it was just jobs, not at all career. And then it was going back to school that made me kind of figure out what I wanted to do a little more long term. So it was glitchy. I remember it really glitchy.
Could you speak a bit more about like how you were feeling during all those transitions and kind of like maybe your thought process?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a sense of adventure leaving college that suddenly, it was the first time that I was going to be kind of striking out on my own in my new city. And I chose Portland for no good reason. I chose it sort of on a whim and on an adventure. So I think the transition was a lot, not only about finding a job and finding a way to support myself, but also building a new community in an entirely new city without the networks of either family, which I had had before, or school, which I had had before, or sports, which I had had at Smith. And so it was like, how do you build a community? Like, how do you make friends? How do you get to know your neighbors? How do you find a job? And so it was so much about trying to build a new network and a new foothold in a new place. And that was almost bigger work than just trying to find a job. That was harder and slower in some ways.
And what was like, I guess maybe one of your first steps into building a new network? Like what advice would you give to maybe college grads now who are making that
Yeah,
big move?
I know. I think, any way that you can get involved with something that you feel passionately about and care about. So I think if you can find a way to volunteer in your new community, even if you haven't found a job yet, that can be a terrific way to do it. I've moved a lot in my life, and I just moved about a year and a half ago to Boston. And I actually drew on my alumni networks, which I had never done before. And I'd always thought like, well, why do I need them? And that seems kind of corny or whatever. But then it has really proved helpful just as a way to start to navigate a new city. So I guess I'd offer that advice too. And, really simple things that seem so straightforward, but like getting to know your neighbors. I mean, it's amazing how much folks who have lived in a city longer than you can start to help you navigate a new place.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I think a lot of times we end up being shy or like we don't want to be a burden, so then we don't reach out.
I know, and I suffer from that very much so. And so I think my jobs have always been so much of my network and my community. And so then when you're starting out and you don't have your first job, like that kind of compounds the problem. Yeah, and I think shy is fine. Like slow and quiet is just as effective as like fast and loud. So
I agree. I was a fast and loud person, and now I'm learning to be a slower and easier person. And I'm like, oh,
okay.
both of these work.
Yeah.
So going back to when you were finished with schooling, uh, what industry did you end up in? Like after your lifeguarding and the working at the Y, like what did
Yep.
you end up doing?
Yep. So I went and I did get more school. So I went and I got a certificate in metalsmithing, jewelry, and furniture. And
Mm-hmm.
then that has really become my industry, my career, my field ever since. So I went on to graduate school. I became a practicing studio artist and a craft-based artist. And that's a huge and dynamic community all around the country and internationally. And that's, I went on to be an educator. So after graduate school, I first had a research fellowship in the Netherlands where I was studying Dutch applied art and design. And then I was teaching back in the States. I was teaching art and design and craft classes in universities and colleges. And I was doing that for a while and then sort of just started moving into administration in combined with teaching. So, but it's always been craft since I started, and it's always been some kind of craft education, whether it's in higher ed. Right now, I'm at a vocational and trade school. So always kind of trying to help other people skill build and develop their voice and develop their abilities around making things.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
that is super important. And I'm wondering, like, what's your maybe like your favorite part of helping others build their voice using craft?
Yeah, I think one is just frankly getting tangible skills
Mm-hmm.
because I think as a woman, when I started learning metalsmithing and jewelry and furniture making, it taught me how to use tools. It taught me how to problem solve in the physical world. It taught me a little bit about engineering, repair, fixing things. And that had such a great translation to like dealing with my car, dealing with my house, or whatever. And so I felt like it gave me capabilities and confidence that I didn't have before. And I think that's what I like most about it is you might have an abstract idea or some kind of dream or fantasy, but then if you can turn it into something concrete, there's just such incredible satisfaction in that
Mm-hmm.
and confidence building. And then the school I'm with now is a school that trains for employment. So then if that also lines up with being able to get a job and support yourself doing something that you care about and is meaningful, then that's immensely rewarding. So I love the students. I love the community that I'm a part of because of it. People who have chosen a pretty alternative path to livelihood, to community, to kind of what interests them. So it's sort of the whole mix that I love, really.
Mm-hmm. I'm so happy to hear like your passion for it. And thank you for sharing your experiences.
Yeah.
And now reflecting on the experiences that you shared, the last question I like to ask is like, what is one piece of advice or one lesson that you would maybe want to go back and give yourself when you were going through everything and that
I
you
know.
want to share today?
So many things, of course, in hindsight we can see,
Mhm.
but I wish in a way I had a lot of fear when I graduated from college, and I wish sort of I would have been braver or something, but I think that comes with time. I sort of wish I would have trusted my own instincts sooner. I felt like maybe I was following what I thought I was supposed to do instead of what I really felt passionately about.
Mhm.
So that sort of had me with a slow start in some ways. And then I just, of course, I wish I could be a better student than I was then. I think I would know the value of the education I was getting and how smart people were around me and how much I could learn from them. And I think I was just lacking in some confidence at that point to take full advantage of it. So those are sort of the things in hindsight, but I wouldn't have this vantage point now if I hadn't been there then. So it's sort of an impossible scenario.
Very true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.